When the Johnson family's new home became a target of hatred and lies, their lives turned into a fight for the right to exist. But Mark's response to this cruelty left everyone stunned, even those who thought they'd seen it all. What he did will shock you, but let's start from the very beginning. Mark Johnson stood on the threshold of his new home, inhaling the crisp air of a quiet, prestigious neighborhood. This was a monumental moment for his family, a symbol of years of hard work and perseverance. Inside, his wife Lisa and their children, Anne, Jake, and little Sarah, were already happily bustling through the rooms, setting up their new cozy space. But that same day, as they had just begun unpacking their belongings, the family encountered the first sign of hostility. Harry Pierce, a local homeowner, accompanied by 2 other neighbors, knocked on their door. Standing on the porch was a man with harsh features and an unpleasant smirk. "Who are you?" Harry asked, his gaze darting around the house and the property. "I don't think anyone here was expecting you." Mark smiled politely, extending his hand. "Mark Johnson. We just moved in. This house is ours now." Harry ignored the gesture, his smirk turning to irritation. "This neighborhood is for respectable families. Did you rent this place? I'm sure there's been some mistake." Mark felt a chill in his chest, but kept his composure. "No, Mr. Pierce," Harry cut him off. "Mr. Pierce, we bought this house. You can check with the real estate agency if you need confirmation." Harry snorted, turned on his heel, and walked away. But within a couple of hours, neighbors began gathering on the street, whispering among themselves and casting sidelong glances at the Johnsons' house. That evening, Lisa noticed a word scrawled in chalk on the sidewalk in front of their home: outsiders. By the next morning, a note had appeared in their mailbox. "You don't belong in this neighborhood. Leave before things get worse." Mark decided it was time to act. He approached Harry's house, determined to address the issue directly. But Harry refused to come outside, shouting from an upstairs window, "We'll be filing a complaint with the Homeowners Association. You won't last here for long." The conflict was only beginning. The next day, a loud knock at the door startled Mark. Standing on the porch were 2 police officers, and just behind them, Harry Pierce's smug face peeked over their shoulders. "We've received a complaint about noise and disturbance," one of the officers began. "Mr. Pierce claims you've been disrupting the neighborhood." Mark took a deep breath, suppressing his frustration. "That's a lie. We just moved in and haven't even played music, let alone made noise. If you'd like, you're welcome to come inside and see for yourselves." The officers exchanged uncomfortable glances before looking at Harry, who suddenly began shouting, "They're troublemakers. This house used to belong to decent people, and now look, turning it into some gang hideout?" Mark held the officer's gaze, calm but resolute. "This is our home. All our paperwork is in order. If you need proof, I can show you the documents." Finding no grounds for action, the officers left, though Harry's smug expression didn't falter. Instead of retreating, he escalated the situation, spreading rumors among the neighbors that Mark and his family were involved in illegal activities. A couple of days later, as Mark returned home from work, he discovered trash dumped across their lawn. Lisa, meanwhile, found a shattered bottle on their porch. "This has to stop," Mark said through gritted teeth. "They want to drive us out, but I'm not going anywhere." Determined to counter the hostility, Mark gathered his family and proposed an idea, inviting all the neighbors to a tea party. "Let's show them we're just a regular, hard-working family," he said. Despite her fear, Lisa agreed, and the family sent invitations throughout the neighborhood. On the day of the gathering, only a handful of neighbors showed up. Most, including Harry, pointedly ignored the invitation. Those who attended were polite but visibly uncomfortable, glancing nervously toward the street. During the tea party, Harry stood across the road, shouting loud enough for everyone to hear. "They're just pretending to be decent to distract you. Don't fall for their tricks." The next day, Mark filed a defamation report with the police. He realized Harry wouldn't back down, but now neither would he. The confrontation was no longer just a personal battle. It had engulfed the entire neighborhood. The conflict between Mark and Harry reached its climax when a video of their altercation outside Mark's house went viral on social media. A neighbor had recorded Harry shouting at Mark, hurling insults, and posted the footage online with the caption, "Racism in our neighborhood?" The video quickly gained traction, sparking outrage and widespread condemnation. Meanwhile, Harry, blinded by his confidence, failed to recognize the storm brewing around him. At a neighborhood meeting he organized, Harry declared, "We need to get rid of them. This neighborhood is becoming unsafe." But not everyone present was willing to blindly follow him anymore. "Are you sure all your accusations are justified?" asked one elderly neighbor. "They haven't done anything wrong, and your actions are starting to raise questions." Harry dismissed the criticism, but his confidence began to waver. At the same time, the video became a hot topic in local news. Journalists interviewed neighbors, some of whom started speaking out in defense of Mark. Under the weight of public scrutiny, Harry began to realize that his actions might have serious consequences. Feeling the growing wave of support, Mark decided it was time to take further action. He consulted a lawyer and filed a defamation and discrimination lawsuit against Harry. In addition, he organized the community meeting at the local civic center to share his story and spark a discussion about racism. The event attracted not only neighbors, but also journalists. "We just want to live in peace," Mark said during his speech. "But we have to fight for that right, because prejudice keeps us from being part of this community." Many attendees were moved by Mark's words. Some neighbors who had previously remained neutral now began openly supporting the Johnsons. Harry, however, was not ready to back down. He barged into the meeting and loudly accused Mark of lying. "This is all fake! They're just stirring up trouble on purpose!" His outburst was met with murmurs of disapproval from the audience. The following day, the Civic Center issued a statement in support of Mark, and local activists offered assistance to advance his case. Harry found himself increasingly isolated. Former allies distanced themselves, fearing the backlash. When journalists approached him for comments, he refused to speak for the first time. The conflict shifted into a new phase. The neighborhood, once divided, began rallying around the idea of justice. Mark filed a lawsuit against Harry for defamation and discrimination, presenting evidence of threats and the viral video of their confrontation. Public opinion was already on the Johnson side. Local news coverage of their story had sparked widespread outrage. The legal pressure caught Harry off guard. His attorney advised settling the matter out of court, but Harry refused, convinced he was the victim. Meanwhile, the Johnson family continued to solidify their place in the community. Lisa organized a charity fair for the local school, and Mark met with city officials to discuss anti-discrimination initiatives. As admiration for the Johnsons grew, Harry found himself losing even the support of those who had once sympathized with him. The court hearing became the climax of the conflict. During the proceedings, Harry attempted to justify his actions, claiming they were meant to protect the neighborhood. However, Mark delivered an emotional testimony, sharing how his family had dreamed of a peaceful life, only to have their sense of security shattered by prejudice. "We are not here to destroy anyone," Mark concluded. "We just want our children to grow up in a world where they are valued for who they are, not judged by the color of their skin." The judge ruled in favor of Mark, ordering Harry to pay a fine and issue a public apology. Furthermore, Harry was required to attend a diversity and inclusion course. After the trial, life in the neighborhood began to change. Harry tried to save face, but struggled to rebuild his tarnished reputation. One day, during a walk, he approached Mark. I was wrong. Maybe I should have taken the time to get to know you," Harry admitted. Mark, despite everything, replied calmly, "Change is hard, but it's possible. I hope you give it a try." Mark turned his victory into a platform for change. He began organizing neighborhood meetings, focused on combating bias and building unity. When journalists asked him how he felt about his victory, Mark often said, "This isn't just my victory. It's a step toward justice for everyone." The story ended with the neighborhood beginning to heal. Harry started attending Mark's events, gradually shifting his perspective. The Johnsons, despite their challenging journey, finally achieved what they had fought for, a home where they were accepted for who they were.